Right then, let's knock this little rascal in close. Just right there. Beautiful little shot. Fading back in and safely aboard the green. And what we might be able to pick up here is where the divot has come after the golf ball. And the question in today's lesson is, should we be taking a divot? Because when I get, especially some beginners coming to me for lessons, and we talk about, you know, should you actually be taking a divot? It's almost frowned upon, almost looked upon as if, oh no, I can't do that, almost as if there is a fear that you might actually get escorted from the golf course if you were to take the divot. Now, yes, we do want to be taking divots with our irons, but it's only a sort of light grazing of the turf, if you were. And the reason we want to be actually taking those, if we, you know, play a picture in our mind of the guys and girls on tour playing, when they hit a good iron shot, we generally see that little chunk of turf go flying up into the air and we hear, you know, that solid strike. But what I would imagine, if we think back to some of the times when we've taken divots out on the golf course ourselves, they've come before the golf ball. So we want to take the divot, but we want to take it in the right place. We want to see that we get the ball, then the divot after the golf ball, so target side of the golf ball, to see that we're getting the best strike. And the reason we want to take this divot, as we know, irons got quite a bit of loft on, as opposed to a driver. If you didn't know, we want to try and hit down on an iron, so we want to see that we deliver a descending blow into the golf ball. We don't want to be trying to help it up, which is where one reason why we might see that we get the divot behind the golf ball. If we're making a swing where we're trying to help it up in the air, the club will start to bottom out before the golf ball, and we could see that you're getting quite large divots behind the ball. Like I say, we want to see that we're getting a descending blow. So one of the key factors to actually creating a divot would be seeing that the pressure is moving towards our target. So if I were in my address position here and then I move into where my impact position would be, you would now see that my sternum has pretty much gone in front of the golf ball there. So there has been a shift of pressure towards the target side here, to the lead side of my body. The other reason we want to see these divots happening, and why they do happening, is because of shaft lean. We want to see that as we get this descending blow with the iron, we're actually sort of de-lofting the club here. So we get shaft lean and pressure moving forwards, which would mean the low point of the arc now, where the club bottoms out, is going to be just after the golf ball. Reason for that, we want to compress our irons. We want to see that we get the best strike and get the most distance out of them. You could be someone who's hitting their irons what you deem to be okay. You actually think, well, do you know what, I don't really thin it, and I don't really ever take that big divot behind the golf ball, but when I strike them, they tend to go awfully high in the air, and also I never really get the distance I seem to see my friends getting. And that will be because as your club's coming in, we get this leaning back of the club. So as we see here, my 9-iron now that's at like 42 degrees, instead of it being delivered with less loft on it, you would see about 20 degrees of shaft lean roughly for a 9-iron on a PGA Tour player. So that would take some loft off the face and turn this 42 down, and see that we get this fizzing of the ball. What you would be doing if you're the person who's leaning back and just managing to let the club slide underneath a little bit more, you'd see the ball get really high in the air because that loft is now added. It's turned up a little bit more, so it gets up in the air and doesn't go. So what we've got to try and feel is that A, we get that pressure shifting towards the target, and B, we get the handle leading the club head into the strike. So we'd just get this little graze, and we'd let the leading edge sort of be the first thing that enters the turf, and then the bounce just carries it on through there. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that as a tour player hits a 7-iron, let's say, their attack angle is 4 degrees down. So if we had 0 at here, 45 in the middle there, 4 degrees is hardly anything. So sometimes there is the confusion of I need to hit down on the golf ball, hitting down on it too much, and that's where massive divots start to come. If we are taking a divot, like I said at the start of the video, it should be only a little bit of a grazing of the turf there, like that's a, you know, nothing size divot as I've gone through. Even with the ground being wet at the moment, all I want to see is that I just bruise it albeit. It might be that you are a divot taker, but as you're hitting them, there's only this real sort of just grazing of the turf. It might be that you leave almost like what looks like a little bit of a burn mark and a skid mark across the turf. It doesn't have to be that you're taking big excavation yards out of the turf as you go through. We want to see that you're just getting a solid compressed strike and getting that little bit of pressure moving forwards and that little bit of shaft lean with just a mild divot afterwards to see that we're getting the most out of our irons. So let's take our setup again. We're going to get a little divot this time again. It's up, pressure forwards, handle leading the head, and we should see that we just get a tiny little divot off here. And there, as you can see, I've probably taken too much of a divot as I've gone through, but I've done okay because I managed to compress the golf ball nicely there. We want to try and take a little less as we go through it. So yes is the answer. We do want to take divots with our irons, but we, like I say, we don't want to see them as big as that one was. We want to try and take them a little less, pick it off the turf a tiny bit more like that one, just a smattering of the turf, and we shall see that we're getting the right size divot as we go through. Guys, I hope that's cleared something up for you. Yes, we do want to take the divots. Just try and bruise the turf. It's not a bad thing if you are taking them. It's only a bad thing if they're coming before the golf ball and if they are absolutely massive. So work on getting some shallow little divots and you'll see that you're starting to compress your irons a heck of a lot better. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the lesson this week. If you did, do remember to hit the thumbs up button down below. Comment down below, are you a big or a small divot taker, and name and shame someone down below who needs to see this video to help them stop taking big chunks out of the tee box when you're playing with them next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.